top 20, but on my playlist, what are the songs that people have listened to and shared the most of my songs? And it was really interesting as I just kind of went through and made a list of songs from years ago when I first started to songs that are more recent. And I felt like I had grown as a writer, looking back at some of those. And I thought it might be a fun way to, like, in concert, maybe I could just kind of do a history of, like, me as a writer and where I've come and things I thought were really good at the time that I still don't think are bad, but as listening now and as you continue to kind of uh, duke it out in writing, as a songwriter, you hear things maybe you didn't hear at
Mm,
one time, and you're like, oh, I wish I could go back and fix that one line or that one word. I think would change the
sure.
whole meaning of that line of the song.
Yeah,
So
that's
to
kind of one
me,
of those things that's a challenge because as a creative, like that process is continually going.
hmm
And when you have to record a song, even the process of recording a song and saying, okay, this is the song, this is what's being released to the world, it kind of fixes that in time and space
hmm
to the degree where you can no longer play with things. Like I'm a tinkerer. I'm always a tinkerer. There's songs that are recorded a certain way, but if you ever hear me do them live, I will add different words at different places because that's after further reflection, that's probably what I should have said or what I could have said. And so there's the recorded version that people get, and then there's the live version. And I think it's a testament to what it is that you're talking about there, that there's this creative process that continues to go in our lives.
yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I do that too, but it's on accident because I forgot the words and I sang I
Well,
sang the
little trick of the trade there. Don't let the words stop you from doing the show.
That's right.
You can think of new words.
Why is he singing Billie Jean in the middle of that worship song? That's weird. Anyway, no,
Exactly.
that's such a good question though. Like, as far as what I think, what if I get back to the original question you had asked, I
Hmm.
think you're asking kind of what makes you a success. And
Ooh, I
and
didn't say it
and
like that, but
well,
here,
it,
you, sir, go.
I think in essence, like, you have to define first of all what you feel like a success is,
Hmm.
and what that means is a success that I get to record some music and play out once in a while at a coffee house and just enjoy life and do my daily job is a success. That this is my sole living that I'm doing, and I'm only known for my music. Um, and however you would define that, if you just want to be wherever God wants me, being used in those moments, if I've followed as faithfully as I know how to, and maybe that's my definition of what a success is. So everybody maybe is going to define that a little differently, but I think it helps to have maybe even a vision statement sometimes of what that is.
Sure.
What's the goal that you're aiming for?
Can you tell us what
One
yours is?
Well, yeah, in a sense, yeah. And it's changing a little bit too, which is
Okay.
is interesting, because on my website, into my logo, there is kind of my mission statement. Hear it, sing it, live it, and and the idea that was behind that was not so much about hearing my music, and singing my music, but hearing from God and what God would speak to all of us together. And as we hear it, we sing it and then we live it. It's sort of like this thing where it comes maybe into our heart and then out of our mouth and then in a place that we kind of come to live it. So that was quite simply kind of the mission statement at the time, a couple of years ago, when I was challenged to make one of those. And then you start to reevaluate those things too. When I entered in to chaplaincy, they actually focus very much, when you're in your clinical pastoral training, on having goals for each unit that you're in, and it's
Hmm.
a really difficult thing because there's things that you want to learn. They may be things you won't learn, so you're trying to fit it into, like, not your whole life, but like in these next 3 months as you're learning. You have these three goals in mind. One's an educational goal, one's a goal about yourself and what you're going to find. And I found that as I would create new goals or create things like, I want to challenge this myth that I have about myself. Why do I tell myself that I'm unworthy? Why do I tell myself that I don't deserve ever to be anywhere, that I don't have any gifts, that I'm an imposter, things like that. It really helps
Stinking
you to
thinking.
confront, yeah, it helps you to confront those lies that
Hmm.
we all tell ourselves. For me, the goal switched in the middle of CPE. Almost the mission changed. I
Okay.
don't, in some ways, I don't think I understood. And I said this to my educator one time. I said, I don't think until I got into chaplaincy, I don't think I really understood ministry. Like doing it for
Ooh.
like 20 years, and then all of a sudden you have something that was just a slight tweak to the way you look at things, but it just transformed my whole paradigm.
It
And
unlocks some things.
yeah, and I can tell you what that was, and it's even
Okay,
changing
tell us.
the way I write songs. I was in an interview where they were asking me some questions about my experience and whether I would continue on in the program because I was eventually invited to become what's called a resident, where you actually do get paid, to do
Yeah.
some things. Um, and in my interview for that residency, one of the persons interviewing me, he asked this question. He said, "When you think of your ministry, do you want people to see Jesus in you, or do you want to see Jesus in that person in front of you?" And my
Mm.
my initial thought was, well, I want people to see Jesus in me, or then I thought about it and I said, well, okay, I mean, I guess maybe both, kind of.
Can it
And
be A and
and
B?
yeah,
Trick
and and
question.
and and as chaplains will often do, he kind of stops and he goes, well, perhaps, but where you start makes a lot of the difference. And he referred to Matthew 25, where Jesus says, "Whatever you've done to the least of these, you've done it to me." And it made me look at that whole passage in a new light. Like,
Mm.
what if every day our task is not so much that I want everybody to see how Jesus-y I am, but it would transform everything if I started to just look at where I could see Jesus in that person in front of me. Those
Wow.
people in the hospital rooms, people who may not even have any interest in faith at all. Somehow we are still finding Jesus in the suffering. We are still finding Jesus there in those places.
Mhm.
For me, that now somebody might hear that and think, "Well, duh, I knew that." But for me, it was revolutionary. It like changed.
They're if they're out there, they're saying, "Duh, I knew that." They probably stopped watching
uh,
this show a long time ago because
oh man,
we're not saying anything new. There's nothing new under the sun that we have said on this
yeah,
show, but it's just a lot of reminders of good and truthful and beautiful things that we've discussed.
mm,
So you continue.
for sure. Well, when I started looking at ministry differently now, it was I started looking at the word witness differently when we are
Mm,
told to be witnesses in this world. And there's a couple different meanings behind that word witness. One is it's where we get the word martyr from. And in some ways, I think we have only looked at the word witness as a way to proclaim. Let me witness to you. Let me tell you this good thing. And yet the word witness is literally tied into the word martyr, which is about laying down ourselves,
yeah.
laying down our lives for others.
Galatians 2:20 type of
Yeah,
perspective there.
yes, exactly. And then when we think also, what does a witness get called in for in like a court trial or something? They're called in because they have been witness to something in most cases, or they're an expert on something in that
Mhm.
field. And it's interesting to me that we are called to be what in the chaplaincy field we are to see people as living human documents, or as the Apostle Paul I think would say, living letters that we see before us. And as we witness that life of another person, maybe sometimes in silence, just allowing them to speak, allowing them the presence of ourselves, just to be in the room with them while they share their story, while we get to hear that perspective that has dealt with something very important and significant, and they've dealt with it differently than we have.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm a white man, so if I walk into a room with an elderly black gentleman who has lived for years and he has walked with race differently than I have. I need to hear his story. I need to make that bow to this person. Or if
Bro,
I walk with
you're in the right spot, bro, because everything that you're saying is just like your demeanor, your presentation of, your understanding of. I'm like, this is what this is this dude. He is
mm,
that guy. He
yeah,
is he is him, guys. He is him.
mm, wow. Yeah, thank you for saying that. You were so
But
kind.
continue, sir.
Well, and I was thinking too, and this will connect to songwriting in just a moment, I promise. For those of you that are wondering where the song connection is,
Yeah, I know you're
um,
cooking. You're about to cook.
there there have been incidences in the hospital where there have been people who I couldn't speak their language, people that were from Rwanda, refugees who were here in the country, and they were fearful. They were scared of what they might be receiving in the food in the hospital. They'd been told different stories, and even like sometimes you really have to work hard to hear a person. Like it
Mm,
means calling in a translator sometimes getting them from another city and making that vow. But I really believe now when I hear that word witness, I hear it in a completely different way than I used to. It is very little about what I say. It is so much about what I hear coming from that other person, and
right.
then trying to say it back to them, saying, "Did I hear you correctly? Like, I wanna make sure I'm not misrepresenting what I heard today. Can you tell me this and tell me your experience?" And it's been so fruitful for me. So getting back to songwriting, how in the world does all this listening help us, in songwriting? I think as songwriters, or any kind of writer or any person that's gonna communicate effectively, most of us are not very good listeners. We're often
Mm,
about the next thing that we
this
want
is
to share with
James.
somebody. And we know most of us are always waiting to, not really listening to the person because we're just waiting for our place to interject into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But what a beautiful witness for us if we can witness the life of another person, um, to really stop and hear their story. And what if, as songwriters, we find ways to tell those stories for people that haven't been able to tell them before. That song that you had just played, the last verse that you played, at at the end of the verse talks about ears to hear you in the ones who have never had a say. There's so many
Mm.
people. We often talk about people, giving voice to the voiceless. Well, most people do have voices. We're just not listening to them, you know?